Hey guys, welcome to Theorycrafting with Du. We're going to be going over just some of the emerging possible deck types in the new meta. For me, I've kind of come up with a deck that I think will be far more popular, and it's just Mage Aggro. I've talked about it before in the card reviews, and yeah, I think it's just going to be a thing. A couple of you may be wondering, Du, what's with the hood? What are you doing? And why are you going mage? You're a priest. Stop. Stop. Yeah, I know this hood is kind of bugging me too, but okay, that's probably better. We need to be in character, you know? Anytime we're gonna not be priest, we gotta do something different. And, I think rocking the hood, just going full-blown mage is how we're gonna do that. So, while we're doing this theory crafting, I'm gonna keep the hood up. Because we are mage. Okay, so basically, with my idea of what we're doing, it's just a basic mage kind of aggro deck that would utilize and abuse the fact that there are mechs with death rattles. So you can run some of the most typically crazy death rattle cards, like Undertaker, who just goes crazy when you have death rattle minions, while also synergizing with other cards that get insane value, like Cogmaster, which is a 3/2 for 1 mana as long as you control a mech, which is crazy value, especially for a neutral minion. Now, that being said, this deck is hard aggro, so it's not going to be your typical mage deck, and yeah. So basically, these are the two highest value cards, potentially. Given that Cogmaster, again, just goes and gets great stats for a minion that'd be 1 mana cost higher than he is, just as long as you control a mech. And Undertaker, don't even get me started, we all know exactly what Undertaker does and why he's so good. So, yeah. That's that. On top of that, some of the minions we have chosen. Clockwork Gnome, a 1 mana 2/1, which is decent stats. Given that he is a mech and has a death rattle, though, the fact that he synergizes so well with both Cogmaster and Undertaker just makes him a must-run, because he's a crazy good 1 mana cost minion. On top of that, his death rattle is to add a spare part card to your hand, and the spare parts can just do all sorts of crazy shenanigans. We've been over them, they're in one of my card reviews. But basically, spare parts are good. And for a 1 mana 2/1 mech, with any death rattle, even if it was a death rattle of you lose a life, that'd still be pretty good. The fact that he gives you a spare part card to play around with just makes him, to me, stupid good. It's only to your hand too. It's not giving your opponent one, just you. Really good. So he's a must run. And that's actually it for 1 mana cost minions. However, we do have 2 mana cost minions, because we're aggro, why wouldn't we? First up is Explosive Sheep, a mech with a death rattle. However, his stats are in fact terrible for a 2 mana cost card, even as a mech with a death rattle. However, I believe he works extremely well in Mage, because his death rattle is to deal 2 damage to all minions. This means that against another aggro deck, you could use him in conjunction with your ping to just wipe off your opponent's board. I'm actually considering switching in Nerubian Egg for the Micro Machine specifically because of this. I'm going back and forth on that. But Explosive Sheep is just good as a form of board wipe. And when you have an aggro deck that can not only just go ham and start smacking people in the face, but also clear another aggro deck's board, that's pretty good. I might take out the Explosive Sheep for the Nerubian Egg, though. And that's because this has a lot of potential to bite you in the butt as well. You'll notice Micro Machine has 2 health. Undertaker's base health is 2, but he'll probably go higher. Still, if your opponent drops even like a Consecrate, it suddenly deals 4 damage to your whole board, which could bite you. It'd kill off Cogmaster, it'd kill off the Clockwork Gnome. I might take the Explosive Sheep out, but I think it is a really good mage card. Perhaps it belongs in more of a control mage. For now, I'm sticking it in here, and I'd be curious to see what it does. But between Micro Machine and Explosive Sheep, one of those two will probably come out for Nerubian Egg. I'm not sure which, but one of the two most likely will. The deck also runs Mech Warper, a 2-mana 2/3 mech, which is decent stats for a 2/3. Given that it's a mech, it also works really well in this deck, and it has the texture mechs cost 1 less. So he's just spitting value out everywhere. Back when Pint-Sized Summoner had the text of, your minions cost 1 less to play. Yes, that was what it was, and it was just a 2-mana 2/2. It was stupid good. If you got it in Arena, that was just, your opponent better kill it, or you're going to win, because you're going to outvalue him. In a deck that runs so many mechs, it means you literally have accelerated the tempo a turn, and it's just crazy in a mech deck. And this does run a ton of mechs. I already showed you guys Micro Machine. I run him because to me he also screams value. He does start as a 2-mana 1/2 mech. However, his text of at the start of each turn, that means your opponent's 2, he gains +1 attack. So by the time your turn rolls back around and you can attack with him, he's a 3/2. And if he survives that turn, by your next turn he's a 5/2. So your opponent's got to really answer him quickly. Preferably the very same turn, or the turn after he's played, because it would technically be their turn. So he's just good to me. On top of that, when they answer, he will be a 2/2. So even trading with minions, he still does okay. He's got a lot of snowball potential. Again, I still go back and forth on this guy. But he is a mech, which helps, and I don't know. Maybe he will be the one to go for Nerubian Egg, but then again, maybe not. Maybe he's just really good. We also, for whatever reason, this deck building software decided to stick Snow Chugger as a spell. Oh wait, no, it's categorizing it by mage cards. Whoops. I'm stupid. It is a 2-mana 2/3 mech with the text freeze any character damaged by this minion. Basically mini Water Elemental, but because he's a mech, I think he's better than Water Elemental in this deck. On top of that, I suppose it would be possible with this to run Ice Lance as a damage burst potential combo. I really don't know about actually doing that, though. Regardless, Snow Chugger can also be used to just freeze large enemy minions and still be a mech. So he's good to just kind of stall things out if push comes to shove. I don't know. He still seems good to me. So, I like him. Next, for 3 mana, we've actually just got Harvest Golem when it comes to minions. He will be a mech after the patch comes out. So he's a 3-mana 2/3 with a Death Rattle of summon a 2/1 damage golem, which will also be a mech. So he's not only a mech with a Death Rattle, he's a very sticky mech with a Death Rattle. So value. I don't need to say anything else. We're also running Duplicate just because, again, get any 2 of your minions back in your hand when one of them dies. And with, you know, a deck like this where you're trying to just run only high-value minions anyway, it doesn't matter what Duplicate gives you back because it's all good. So, I think Duplicate's a no-brainer. For 4 mana, we are running Jeeves because we need him for gas. This is the deck's only real draw engine. And basically what the goal is to do is to just dump all your good minions onto the field. Hope you can get Jeeves, which I realize is a little bit, you know, spotty. But given the fact that so many of these minions are, you know, kind of sticky as well, like Harvest Golem sticky, some of the higher cost minions are, and we have Duplicate, I think it's still safe to do. So, it could be this deck needs a little bit more card draw, but basically Jeeves will be the, once you've dumped your hand, play him, and do what you can to keep him alive, because from there you can just keep dumping cards onto the field and he'll keep you gassed up, which is amazing. We're also running Fireballs, because Mage, you don't run Mage without Fireball. And we're running the Goblin Blast Mage. He's a 4-mana 5/4 with a battle cry of, if you control a mech, deal 4 damage, randomly split among enemy characters. Which is just insane. I mean, here we go. We've got a panda that's also dealing 4 damage only to enemies, so he can't bite you in the butt like a Mad Bomber or Madder Bomber now can. So, given that this deck runs so many mechs already, Goblin Blast Mage is just crazy high value, and he's a must-run. We're also running the Mechanical Yeti. Yes, they turned the Yeti into a mech with a death rattle. Good God, Blizzard! Why? He's a 4-mana 4/5 just like the Yeti is. He has a mech and he has a death rattle of give each player a spare part. So the death rattle's balanced, which I guess is their excuse for giving him a death rattle. Still, it's a death rattle, which means it works with Undertaker, and it is a mech, so you could potentially get out a Yeti turn 3. Play an Undertaker, drop a mech warper. Now, you can also drop Clockwork Gnome for free. Undertaker becomes a 2/3, you now have a 2/1 and a 2/3 sitting on the battlefield. Turn 3, drop a Mechanical Yeti. Things start snowballing out of control and your opponent just gives up because, damn, this game is hard. Yeah. Yeah. We also run the Piloted Sky Golem because he has a mech with a death rattle. And his death rattle is to summon a random 4-cost minion, which could be a mech. If it is a mech, it becomes even crazier. If it's a mech with a death rattle like a Mechanical Yeti, you just went off the charts with value. Straight up off the charts. So, Piloted Sky Golem is just your late game kind of finisher card. The deck also runs Flame Strike because Mage. Maybe this should go for some other high value minion. But, I feel like there are times where Flame Strike could be necessary. Especially if your only other form of board clear is going to be the Explosive Sheep, which is part of why I run the Sheep. I mean, maybe this deck, just because it's so aggro, doesn't need board clear at all, because it just trades well, especially because you're Mage and you're pinging things. But, some form of board wipe seems necessary, and there is no better form than Flame Strike. So, yeah. This is not what I'm saying right now is just going to be what all the pros use. This is the deck to beat in the new Goblins vs. Gnomes expansion that's coming out. I do think, though, that a Mage deck similar to this will become very prominent and very powerful because you've just got so much value. Mech Warper speeding up Death Rattle mechs to get way quicker turns than anybody else can. You've got mechs that just have crazy value on their own, that are sticky, and have good death rattles. And on top of that, we now have Jeeves, and the primary problem that Mage faced before, which didn't allow it to run a Zoo deck, was that you can't get that much card draw in an aggro Mage. Warlock was really the only prominent aggro form with Zoo because they have their hero power to tap and keep getting cards. So when you run out, you tap, you get more cards. Mage just got that problem fixed with Jeeves. So this kind of deck could be viable. Perhaps Flame Strike could go for something like Arcane Intellect, and maybe drop the Explosive Sheep to stick in a Loot Hoarder, so that you get just tons of card draw. You're losing some mechs, but big deal, it's card draw, and with Flame Strike, maybe you don't need the board clear anyway. Still, this is just a very rough outline of what I think is going to be happening in the new meta, and I think this deck is going to own. I am scared of this kind of a thing, especially as a Priest player, because I don't really plan to play this. And given that Priest so far has not seen super crazy cards, I'm not liking it. I mean, yeah, sure, we've got Sneed's Old Shredder, turn 8, the best legendary in the game, not debatable because it also drops another legendary into the game. What's that? You dealt with my 5/7? Here, now deal with Ysera 2. Great. But all in all, Priests have not gotten that big of a buff. They've got Shrinkmeister, but he has to be comboed with existing Priest cards anyway. And aside from that, Priests aren't getting huge value buffs. I mean, the Priest is a sort of combo control deck, and none of these newer cards fit into that combo aspect. So, Priest actually has gotten relatively left behind in this patch, in my opinion. And, with this kind of a crazy new aggro deck coming out, I fear for my class. But they're not done releasing cards, and that's why this isn't even a finalized version of what this deck could be, because they could release some stupidly crazy new cards that are mechs with death rattles, and I will be forced to run them because the value. Regardless, this is Theorycrafting with Du for Mage Aggro. Now to reveal the deck's name. I personally called the deck Robot Unicorn. Why? Because, first of all, you're a mage, so magic. Gives you the unicorn aspect. Second of all, mechs, robot, come on. We're getting there. And third, robot unicorns mean death. You've got death rattles going left and right. Perhaps my wit exceeds me and I've just done something incredibly stupid, but that's what I named the deck, and I hope that sticks, honestly. I think it's a good name, but of course I do, otherwise I wouldn't have named the deck that. So, I think this robot unicorn kind of death rattle mech mage is just going to be super prominent, super strong. It'll need some tweaking, and I do not think by any means that this is a finalized version. I can't even really decide if I like the version as it is, given the cards that they have released, because I can't playtest it. Yeah, but something like this is going to come out, something like this is going to be super strong, and I am going to cry every time I face it, because it's so nerve-wracking. Anyway, that's Robot Unicorn Theory Crafting with Do. Thank you guys for watching.